Hey everybody, I'm David.
I'm Jess.
I'm the husband.
I'm the wife.
And we are married.
15 to life.
Good morning, honey.
Good morning.
How are you?
It's not even been a full week, but it's been a busy start to the week.
It has been a busy start to the week. And at the time of this recording, we're under a snow watch, a winter storm watch.
Yeah, it's supposed to snow / maybe sleet tonight. So the city's on full prep mode, I guess.
So in the process of that, we're going to do this recording quickly. And today is an Ask Us Anything episode. We told you guys it would be coming. We told you to please give us your questions. A lot of you showed up and did that. And so we've been checking the emails and checking the comments. Thank you in advance to all of you for submitting the questions. We're going to tackle as many of them today as we can within the 45-minute to an hour window that we have to do this. So let's just jump right into it, honey. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. We're not going to waste any time with the backstory. We just told you what the backstory was, and we did a lot of recapping earlier. It's actually been pretty quiet since our recap of Night to Shine. There hasn't been too much going on, but I think a lot of it is just trying to get back in a sense of what normal is for school schedules and church schedules and everything else. Is there anything big over the weekend that you want to highlight other than Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day was fun.
Yeah, had a great time with that. It feels like it's already been a week ago since that, and it's only been like 3 days.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's the nuts of all this. Okay, but let's get into the questions. The first question we have here comes from I'm just going to spell it out, at CEMSO923. If there's a way to pronounce that, then let me know what that is. But I believe it's a she. She says, hey, you guys are killing it with the podcast. I love to listen while I do my daily cleaning. Thank you. Jessica loves to listen to podcasts while she does that too. For a question, something I've been curious about is how, if you guys have started tapering off the fuelings on Optavia, how has that gone? I commend you both so much on committing to a strict diet and having so much success with it. However, as someone who's struggled to lose weight over a long period of time, and if I finally have had success with a weight loss med. Awesome. Good for you. I would be so anxious about slowly ending the fuelings. Maybe that's super easy for y'all, but I'd be nervous to deviate all from the fear of losing my progress. But that could very well be my own insecurities speaking. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. I'm going to condense that into one paragraph. But basically, how's it going with Optavia and coming off the fuelings? You want to start?
Well, Optavia is great because they do have a plan for when it's time to start coming off the fuelings. So there is, in the booklet, there's some ideas that you can kind of use as fuelings to kind of, get off of that. They still want you to pretty much do the same thing, eat every 2 to 3 hours, high protein, low fat, low calorie. So there are options in that book that you can have. We have not hit our goal weight yet.
Nope.
However, we've had to trim a lot in the finance department at the start of this new year.
Right.
And because we were both on Optavia, we've had to definitely cut back. We still are eating fuelings, but we are supplementing that with some of those healthier things like a string cheese, Greek yogurt, some protein shakes maybe that aren't Optavia brand, but are similar in terms of macros. So that's our biggest thing. We're still doing the lean and green. I will say the biggest thing that I think is hard is we have had little treats here and there, which when we first started
specifically in the holiday times and then Valentine's Day, date nights,
during the
not very romantic to sit there and peel open a Crunchers packet while you're trying to have a romantic date. So
that's been hard because when we first started Optavia, we did not go off track at all, and so balancing how do you have a date night but not completely derail yourself, that's been kind of the hardest thing. I wouldn't say adjusting the fuelings has been necessarily hard. For us, it's been not being 100% on plan.
Right.
And at least for me, I don't know about you.
Yeah, for me, when you get to a certain level, I'm about probably 35 pounds away from my goal weight. And I was at one time almost 25 pounds away. The holidays and my birthday and Valentine's Day, all that stuff compacted, put a little bit of the weight back on. But the thing for me is just, again, when you feel the urge to eat, reach for a fueling. and try to let it taper off with that, and then try to save your biggest meal for your leading green, whenever that is, whenever me and Jess decide that's going to be. And also, like she said, because of the the financial, it's an investment. It's an investment. It's into a diet plan.
I don't regret us putting the money into it.
No, not at all.
But at the same time, like, we had to cut back a little bit just because of everything is going up. You know?
One thing I'm glad that Jessica thought of is, okay, well, is there anything out there that's comparable to these fuelings? Like, instead of getting, the bars from Optavia, get Atkins fueling bars, or get, instead of getting the Cruncher packets from Optavia, go get Quest chips.
Yeah.
Finding some replacements.
Have a bunch of fuelings,
and we do, yes,
that we're still going through too. So that's great. So we have kind of like a little, not a big stockpile, but we got a pretty
good stash
of some fueling. So we're still eating the fuelings, but I would say the hard part for me is not the fuelings.
No, the hard part is staying on track with them.
The hard part is just like, I want us to find the balance of living our life,
right?
And also staying on track too.
Right.
And that is a balance.
And it's just crazy because neither one of us really have time to work out and have time to, and I'm not making excuses for that. We seriously, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, it's anything for us to find a free hour in the day just to
walking and stuff. But it's been so
and I try to stay moving too.
But anyway, it's going good.
Yeah, and we're doing our best to stick with it as best we can, and just accept the losses when they come. And if there is a gain, then just try to buckle down a little bit better the next week.
Yeah,
so that's about as good as we can say it. Yeah. So hope that answers your question. If you have any other ones about it, please send it to us. Next one, this is a fun one from @Super Savvy, excuse me. Forgive me for that. That's a whole different name. @Super Savvy 103. Jess, any advice for wives? How do we submit? But also give suggestions. If he says something, and I trust my husband is making the right decision for my family, but if I have another suggestion, how do I navigate bringing up suggestions, or do I just let him make all the decisions? First and foremost, how in the world do you think that I have the opportunity to have a suggestion?
Hey.
I'm just kidding.
Goodness.
I'm just kidding. No, let me speak from the husband, and then you speak from that. In the biblical standing in Ephesians 5, where Paul says, wives, submit to your husbands, that does not mean become his slave. That does not mean become his servant, become lesser than. In the Bible, in Genesis, when God made man and woman, God did not, as my papa would always say, and he quotes this at every single marriage, and it's beautiful, God did not take the woman from Adam's head to rule over him, nor from his leg or his ankle so that she could be stomped on. But rather, she took him from the side, from the rib, close to his heart, so he can be supported, loved, cared for, and protected, and equal to. And so when you read in the Bible where it says, wives, submit to your husbands, in the culture of the day, women were seen as less than citizens. They weren't allowed to do nearly as much as men were allowed to do. Thank God times have changed, and men and women have awoken to the roles of men and women, and how women, can succeed and do anything men can do. But there is a biblical role within, because God is a God of order. And we've talked about this before, that there's a biblical role of God has appointed the man to be the priest and the husband and the father and the protector, the provider, the covering over the home as best he can be. And the wife is to come alongside and complete the areas that he needs completed and that he may be lacking in. And if there is a moment where a decision needs to be made, and there is difference of opinions, God looks to the man and says, lead your home. And God looks to the wife and says, compliment the man, give him everything he needs to make the best decision he can, but then trust him before God to make the decision. And in that moment, if the man screws up, it's on him, and the wife did the best thing that she could do. And that's the way the Bible lays it out. If I'm missing anything, fill in the gaps here from the female perspective of this.
I just love how the question was to me, and then David just
I'm getting my basis out of the way, because now I'm going to shut up and let you talk.
The question is to me, and he's like, actually. Okay.
I didn't say actually. I wanted to give you a firm foundation to build as high of a house on as you want to.
Bombastic side eye, as Lucy would say. This is my question.
Yeah.
No, that was all good. I just think it comes down to...
I love your face the whole time.
I was like, this is my question?
This is good stuff, but seriously?
No.
Build whatever house you want, honey.
No. I'm just saying, yes, we we come together. We've always come together as a team for 99% of everything. Now, there are things that women are just better at.
And I'm quick to default and say, Jess, make the call on that.
Right. But that's something you have to decide in your own marriage. There is very few times in our marriage where we've disagreed and you've been like, no, now there has been times.
No.
But for the most part, we make decisions together.
Absolutely.
And so when the Bible says submit to your husband, it doesn't mean, like you said, it doesn't mean lord over them. You have no opinion. And this is my thing. If you don't feel comfortable coming to your husband and talking to them,
there's something wrong.
There's a foundational issue there.
Yes.
That needs to be worked through, because
whether in you or in him.
Or together.
Or together, yeah.
Because your voice should definitely be heard in love, not in a mean way, but we are there to strengthen each other.
Yep.
And so in our marriage, we've always just made decisions together. Now, there has been times where we've disagreed. And at the end of the day, I do default to you.
Right.
Because I know, as the leader of our home, that is what I should do. And like you said, if you mishear from God, if that was the wrong decision that you make,
then you get to say, I told you so.
No, but I'm just saying that's not on me at that point.
No.
Now, I do everything I can to tell you how I feel. And you are very good about taking what I say under suggestion. And like I said, there's most of the time we do come to a common ground. But you as a wife should 100% feel comfortable coming to your husband about decisions and giving him, what you think.
Yeah, and a lot of men have trouble receiving it because of their own personal insecurities. Yeah. And a lot of men also have trouble receiving it because maybe that was not how it was modeled for them by their father or stepfather, whoever was the authority figure in their home that they look to as this is what a man is supposed to be. But I also want to say this. It's very, very important, ladies. Please just hear me from a man's perspective on this. Men want to be respected. Women want to be loved. It's truly, I cannot break it down more simple than that. And not saying men don't need love. We absolutely do. But a man's world, this is a man's world, but a man's world is built on respect. Is built on, if a man feels like he's disrespected or he's not appreciated or what or his role, his responsibilities as a man is not respected by his wife, then he will go extra hard to try to domineer or try to prove himself. Please follow me. Please listen to me. I'm telling you, blah, blah. And of course, most women hate that. Don't want to see that side of their husband. And so if you as a wife can just come along and say, look, I love you. You're a great dad. You're a great husband. What? You work so hard for us, and I trust that you're gonna make a good decision here. I just want to say that there's maybe this one thing that I see that maybe you don't see, but at the end of the day, I respect you as my husband, and I want you to make the best decision for our family. Right then and there, the guard just came way down, and he will hear whatever you have to say because he hears your heart.
What I was trying to say too is, it's all in the delivery.
All in the delivery.
You can't come to your husband with a "you're so stupid,
you idiot! How come you don't see this?
You're so wrong here." You should it is all about mutual respect both ways, and realizing that you don't lord over me.
No.
I don't nag you. It has to be a team. We are a team.
Yes.
And I see things that you don't see, and you see things that I don't see.
That's why I need you in my life, because I'm not God. I can't see or know everything.
Yeah. And so, anyway, I don't know if that answers the question, but I do think that this is an important issue that we have to work together.
Yeah.
And I have to feel, and I do feel comfortable coming and talking to you about decisions. And I do know that you're going to take my input, to heart.
Yep.
So
agreed. Last thing I'll say on this. Women, if you have a husband who is stubborn and hard-headed and doesn't want to hear you, or men, if you have a wife that does not respect you and doesn't, properly submit the way the Bible says, not the way you say, but the way the Bible says she's supposed to, don't change them. Go to God and pray. That's something that we've had to learn as well. The subtle hints or the passive aggressiveness or the arguing or begging each other to change, that doesn't work. The only thing that truly works is going into your prayer closet, putting them before the Lord and say, God, help me love them and help me serve them as above myself. Help me love them above myself. And Lord, in the process of doing that, I believe by your word, you're going to work on their heart. You're going to help them discover and become the person they are supposed to be. And God never fails. He always does his best work when we yield and let him do that.
I definitely agree with that.
Yep. And I'm still praying for this one. I'm just kidding. She probably spends more time in the prayer closet for me. All right. I'm just trying to dig a hole here. I'll live there later. All right. This one I'm going to give completely to Jessica. At 533134 asked the question, Jess, any advice for the single ladies on dating and finding the one? All you, honey.
So it sounds cliche, but it's the truth. You have to be okay with being alone. You know, I mean, I always, and I know we got married young. I wanted a husband. I wanted a family. God knows the desires of your heart. But that like desperation of I must find a man and I don't care what man it is, you know, that desperation. Some people feel like that and they settle. You know, I feel like that old cliche of you have to be complete with you and God and let God bring the right person in. You cannot go and hunt someone down. You want to wait for the right guy. Don't settle for whoever is available, you know? And so I think so many people get, you know, that biological clock is ticking. They want to get married. They want to have kids. And I understand that. I wanted that from a very early age. But you can't make that happen for yourself. Now, I do think there are things you can do. You can be friendly. You can, I mean, I was one that I didn't like to go out. I wanted to stay at home and never see anyone. Well, you're never going to meet anyone that way. You can definitely pray about it. God already knows the desires of your heart, but start praying. I prayed for my husband from the time I was a little tiny girl that God would bring him into my life. And so there are things you can do, but at the end of the day, can you be okay with waiting for the one God has for you? Because no one else is it's worth waiting for.
The only thing I can add is, how can God trust you with the one if you're not ready to become the one?
Yeah, work on yourself.
You've got to become the one. I tell this to young men and women that I counsel that are, you know, ready to build relationships, or maybe they've had a failed relationship and they're like, what went wrong, this, that, or the other. And I always tell them and say, become the person that someone else is looking for. Become that person that is so in love with Jesus and is content with just having a relationship with the Lord and is willing to work on themselves and be the best version of themselves they can be and become who God created them to be. That confidence and self-assurance and security in who you are, that's very attractive to the right person. The right person will chase you and want you in their life because they see something that they want in their life, or they see someone that they want in their life. And my dad said that. He said, David, you need to pray for a woman who loves the Lord more than you do. And you need to become a man who loves the Lord more than she ever could. Because when you do that, you're going to attract each other to each other, because that's the place of attraction that should be, is based on the right things.
And I will say too, like, wait for the person that's going to love you for who you are.
Yes, don't change for them.
And don't try to like be someone that you think they want.
Right.
You know, because the right person is going to love everything about you. Not that you're perfect and you can't work on anything. But
that's why I said be who God's created you to be.
Yeah. But I see so many people settle, and I think that's why a lot of marriages don't work out.
Right.
Because they didn't wait for maybe the right person.
Yeah.
Or they didn't work on, this is another pet peeve of mine. We work so hard to get to the wedding, you know, we spend so much money on the wedding, but a lot of people don't work on their marriage. They don't work on the relationship. And that is what's going to carry you through. The wedding is going to be over in a day. I
was talking to Pastor about that last week. We were in one of our mentoring sessions, and I said, the Lord showed me something. We spend so much time doing background checks on cars we buy and on houses we buy because we think to ourselves, this is a major investment that I'm going to live with for a long time. I'm going to be hopefully driving this car for a long time. I'm going to be hopefully living in this house for a long time. So I really need to make sure I do my homework on this. Why not the same in marriage? Why not do your homework on yourself? Do your homework on the other person. Before they get down on one knee, you need to probably run some safety checks and probably need to run some.
Are you saying you wish you had a background check on me?
What I'm saying is, in the dating process and the courting process, we had serious talks. Yeah. We had serious discussions, and we went before God with all of it. And there were times when I was like, God, this is something that I'm going to have to change about myself. And I'm sure Jessica said the same thing to God in her prayer time. These are areas of our lives that are maybe insecurities we have or burdens we have. And it has been a process. We always make the joke, we were 96% compatible and we're still working on the 4. That 4% of stuff never goes away. You're always going to be working on it for, the length of your marriage. And when things come up, and a lot of people times when things blow up in their marriage, it's like, well, how did I not see this in the beginning, or why, how did I not know this, and a lot of times it's because we don't properly date each other or court each other.
It's just the whole thing of like you get married and you live happily ever after. That's what you think. That's what you grow up hearing.
Right.
But marriage is a lot of work.
Yes.
And there's no like, oh, we just get married. We got married and everything worked out great. Like you're joining two
Sweep
lives.
it under the rug. It'll go away eventually.
You're joining two lives together.
Yeah.
And so that does take, I'm not saying we don't have, when I say don't change, I don't mean there's not going to be compromises.
No.
There's not going to be coming together on ideas.
But the inner core of who God made you to be, that should not have to change.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, marriage is awesome, but it is a lot of work and it's a big commitment.
Yeah,
so wait. That's why we're saying wait for the right one.
Yeah, that's why I'm agreeing with you completely. Don't rush because you feel like you need somebody.
And I wish I could go back and tell myself this because I'm so glad God did bring the right one to me, but
me too.
I was ready to be married and I didn't enjoy the time of being single.
Right.
And not that I would go back and do it over again, but I wish I could go back and enjoy that time.
Me too.
Because I never am going to have it again. I'm never going to have that time where you can be 100% selfish.
Absolutely.
And be 100% do what you want to do. And like, there's always going to be compromise now. There's always going to be the other person to think about. And so the other advice I would say is enjoy the time that you have to be single. I know it's hard at times, but you are going to miss that. I mean, it is a special time. Especially
people that are ministry minded. Paul writes and says, if you can remain single, do it. Because you can accomplish more by yourself with the Lord. You're not tied down to a family schedule. You're not tied down to having to take care of somebody else. You're not having to tie down about always valuing somebody else in your life when it comes to decision making or when it comes to dreams or all of that. It's just you and God. And you can push the pedal to the metal with God and go as fast as you want to go. When you bring that second person in, it's no longer about you and God. It's about you and that person and God. The three become one. And yep. I mean, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I want Jess in my life and I want her at my side in everything we do. But I had to get to the place with God where I was like, God, I just know that when the time is right, you're going to bring the right person to me. But before that happens, I need to be okay if it's just me and you. And thankfully, when I reached that place and I was surely content and marriage was not on my brain, that's when God brought Jess into my life. And I'm so thankful he did because he knew I needed you. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just listening.
Okay. And next question. Let's see. I probably should have paired this one with the first question. How has your health journey been going? I'd like to hear about how both of your experiences are doing with Optavia and how is this compared to the other plans that you've tried. And this is from @BeanFry153. Do you ever fry beans? @BeanFry153. So the crux of the question is Optavia compared to Atkins, compared to low carb, compared to keto, compared to everything else we've done.
Optavia, and I will never say bad things about Optavia. I love Optavia. I still coach people on Optavia. I love the simplicity, and that's what I needed. That's what we both needed.
Agreed.
There is no...
It adapts to your schedule no matter what it is very well.
There's no figuring out stuff and what do I eat. And every other time we've had to just kind of figure it out. Even if there was a plan, this is so easy. Here's 5 fuelings, make a lean and green. You can take it in the car with you. It's so easy.
Yep.
That's what I love about it. And it does teach you... It taught me a lot of things. It taught me the importance of protein. It taught me the importance of eating smaller meals. I really feel good when I do that. It taught me how to actually enjoy healthy food.
Yeah.
I thought for so long, I've said this on my vlogs, and probably people are tired of me saying it.
Say it again.
I thought for so long that I just didn't like healthy food. I didn't like cauliflower. I didn't like zucchini. I didn't like all this stuff. Yeah, I did. I just didn't know how to cook it, or I didn't know.
Your palate needed to change.
And I love that stuff. And so even though, we're having date nights here and there, we're having Christmas dinner, and then we're going off track a little bit there. But I love now that it's not even a thought. I don't make regular rice. We make cauliflower rice. It's just like what we do now, And
I don't miss rice at all.
No.
At all.
And I would have never thought that. There's so many little things that we've learned about eating healthy that Optavia taught us.
Right.
That we will continue forever. Like, there's so many swaps that we've made, just little things.
Yep.
Little things. And they're
budget saving, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them are. Yeah.
But just like learning how to, I'm not a big meat eater. We all know this.
I'm a huge meat eater.
Which it can work for both ways.
Yep.
But they have a lot of vegetarian options. They have meat options too. But when I would eat before, because I don't like meat, I would just leave the meat off.
Right.
Well, then I'm having like maybe veggies and carbs, and I wasn't getting my protein in. Well, they have meatless options that you can add in, which I never even thought about, that maybe some cheese, maybe some cottage cheese, maybe some yogurt, whatever it is. And that allowed me to still get the food I like, but to be fueled correctly.
Yeah.
And so I love Optavia for that. I know people have a problem with the price and all of that. I will say, once you start adding up all of what you were spending,
it's an investment.
It is an investment, but if you think you can't afford Optavia, and if you can't, that's fine. I'm not trying to sell it. We can't afford it right now.
No.
However, if you add up, if you say you can't afford it, but you're going to Starbucks and you're going to Chick-fil-A and you're going to all these places, you may be able to afford it more than you think, because it's about $15 a day. And I would venture to guess most people probably spend more than that on food. Not everybody does, but a lot of people do. And so it is an investment into your health and into yourself. And Optavia, the fuelings are not made to be a lifelong thing. It's made to teach you. And they do have transition plans. And so a lot of people have a problem with the fuelings and stuff. I am grateful for the simplicity the fuelings taught us. And there is like I said, a transition plan to get off of those and onto more like real food if you want. A lot of people love the fuelings and they always have bars with them and stuff. It's very convenient. So
Agreed. 100%. I can't add anything to that. Awesome. Next question is from Morgan Witherall. I'm assuming that's your last name. Morgan Witherall, 1996. What kind of dog is Layla?
Layla is half Dachshund, half Yorkie.
AKA the Dorky.
She's a Dorky. I think it's the perfect breed.
It is.
I love Dachshunds. I love Yorkies, and putting them together.
Best of both worlds.
She's the best. Like, we didn't know what a
hyperactive
Dorky was.
weenie dog.
We didn't even know what a Dorky was when we got her.
Yeah.
But we looked up pictures, and I say she's cuter than any picture we saw when we first looking at.
Maybe we just love her.
I just love that girl so much. She's so sweet. And I'm 100% team lap dog.
Yes.
I love a lap dog. I love the comfortable, like, companionship of it. So we will always
carry them around everywhere.
Yeah, they just sit on your lap, and they do become like part of your family. So
you gotta be careful when you walk around. You might step on them. Next question, and that is, as a teenager, my first job. I need to do this in the beginning. From at Patriot Girl 70. Woohoo! As a teenager, my first. By the way, does that mean you're proud to be an American or you love the New England Patriots? Either way, I would love to know the answer to that. Maybe you can put that in the comments. At Patriot Girl 70 asks, as a teenager, my first job was McDonald's throughout high school. What kind of jobs did you both have in high school?
Do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. My very first job was as a freshman. My dad said, you can come over after school and help me at my warehouse. And so my dad was the vice president of the company. And I would come over, and he reported me to the warehouse manager. And the warehouse manager said, here's what you're going to do. The afternoon shift comes in right at the time that you come over from school. So you're going to clean everybody's stations and throw out the trash. And if the bathrooms are congested, you're going to go clean the bathrooms. And that it's about a 2.5-hour job. And so I did that for probably 10 to 15 hours a week. And that was my first part-time job. Other than that, I did landscaping. And of course, babysat my brother, which my mom and dad were like, we know how it's not just a typical babysitting job. It's more intensive because of his autism. So yes, we're going to pay you for that. And so basically that was my high school and really landscaping was when it really took off, because then I was starting to cut grass and cut company grass and, things like that. And they paid me as a part-time employee for that. So
I grew up, I think at like 13, I went to a babysitting class at the YMCA because I loved kids. Me and my friends, we loved the babysitters club and stuff. We would have totally done like a babysitters club thing. But anyway, we went and had that class and learned CPR and everything. I started babysitting, pretty early, 13, 14 years old. I loved it. My first actual job outside of babysitting is I worked at a grocery store as a cashier, and I hated that.
Cha-ching.
I hated it so much.
Cha-ching.
You're standing in one area for a very long period of time.
Cha-ching.
And what I hated, I've talked about this, I think, on this podcast before, is we had to sell alcohol to people. That wasn't the part that I really hated. I hated the pressure they put on you. Like, they scare the crap out of us. Like, there's going to be people that come in here, and there are people that come in to try to see if you're going to ID them, and if you don't, you could lose your job. They told us you could be arrested, fined, all this stuff. So I was just IDing everybody, and they said if they look over 40, ID them. Well, what is that? Over 40. So unless they looked like they were 100, I ID.
You mean unless they look over 40?
Yes.
You said if they look over 40, ID them.
Unless
they look over
I think
40.
I said unless.
Okay.
Anyway.
I may have misheard you. My bad.
I could have said it wrong. Anyway, so I was IDing everybody. They would all get so annoyed with me because not the workers, but
do I not look 40 to you?
They'd be like, what? I've never been asked for my ID. But they scared us so bad about all the stuff that could happen if we sold alcohol, to the wrong person. And as I did that at 15. That's a lot of pressure to put on a 15-year-old, And then on Sundays, I would work after church on Sundays sometimes in the afternoon. And in Alabama, I don't know if it's still like this, but you could not buy alcohol on Sundays. It's probably not anymore.
No, it's probably not.
But people would get so mad about that. And it was just a lot of stress. Dealing with the public is, so I had a lot of health problems and it had to quit. We've talked about my health problems before, probably on here. I don't know.
I think we've touched on them a little bit.
Anyway, so I had to stop, and I was not sad about that because I hated it. And then I went back to babysitting, and I found a family that, I didn't find them. I knew them down the street from us, and they needed a full-time babysitter, like a nanny that got their kids off the bus for them, was there when their kids got home until they got home for dinner, and then during the summer, I babysat them too, and it was great because I really got to know the kids. They're all grown up now, but if they had to go to a doctor's appointment, I took them. If they, if we would go to birthday parties, and I would just take care of them, and I loved that. That to me, babysitting / nannying, and that's what I did all the way through college. It's just the best job.
Did that season solidify you really want to be a full-time mom?
I always knew that, but yeah, I loved it. They were like my babies. When I started watching them, one was in kindergarten and one was in second grade, and
like Nate and Lucy.
And I watched.
At the time. And then now, just like Mark, Lucy and Mark.
I was gonna say, they're way older than that now.
Yeah, they're way older than that now.
But I loved it. And when I would come home, for the summer, I'd watch them, even in college. And they were a lot more grown up then. But I loved it.
Awesome. We have 2 questions left in this episode. So again, guys, keep sending us your questions and we'll make sure that we have them in here. I know the wood's creaking. Next question from @VaragonZ0051. I know I butchered that. Maybe a whole different way. Or Varagons0051. They asked the question, why didn't David pastor his granddad's church? They didn't ask me.
This is a very common question.
They didn't ask me. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm baffled by this question. Because,
Me too.
Because I don't think people that ask this understand how ministry works.
They don't.
Now, maybe in a small church, if you maybe, we've had churches that we know.
Yeah.
That maybe your dad pastors a church, you're associate under them, you're worship pastor, and when it's time for him to retire, you move up to that position.
Right, but that's one generation down. That's
David, when his grandfather retired, you were in college.
Yeah.
So it's not one of those things that.
And I had 0 full-time experience.
And it's a big church.
Huge church.
It's not something that, obviously, you pastor, it doesn't happen like that.
David's been in doing ministry 20 years. He's pastored in 2 churches, and one of the churches he grew by double the people. So he knows what he's doing, and on top of that, he's got a great walk with the Lord, and he loves people. So he's a natural. I had none of that.
Well, and I think if that happens and it works out, that's great. I'm all about legacy. I think that's awesome.
Absolutely.
But most of the time, it doesn't work out like that.
No.
And it's not something like, even if you wanted it, it's not something that you can just ask for.
Yeah.
You still have to be qualified and apply. And, you have to feel they want the right person for the job.
Absolutely.
So it's not something that you just can be like, I want to pastor the same. It's just, it doesn't work like that.
And a church of 1,200 or so people at the time. Yeah, let's get the 23-year-old with 0 full-time experience to run this place.
Talk about nepotism, right?
I know. There's no way. I wouldn't even been qualified enough to be the youth pastor. I really wouldn't have. No, not even close.
It's not something just because his grandfather pastored this church, obviously he would be able to.
Right.
It just doesn't work like that.
And also, I don't think I've ever told this story. When I was 5 years old. When I was 5 years old, I was sitting in the basement at our house and where my mom and dad live now. And Papa was down there and we were doing some kind of ping pong or game or something. And people were eating. And Papa just looked at me and in his joking, fun way just said, David, one day you're going to pastor my church. And he said that in a way because he loved me. And I was his first grandson and I was the one that had all the scriptures memorized because mom and dad, we've told that story. And so, but I remember that so vividly because for the first time as a 5-year-old, I'm like, well, what if I did that someday? Yeah. And the funny thing is I did get to the point where there was always unrest in me about, am I ever going to go home?
Yeah.
And it didn't really happen early because of course my brain was like, you just started. There's no way. It's not going to happen. But it's funny, my mom and dad sometimes always joke and be like, wouldn't it be cool if you came and pastored one of our campuses? Or wouldn't it be cool if you came and did something here back where your papa started the church and all of that?
You never know what God's going to do.
But what I was going to say is that the Lord got with me in the prayer closet one day and said, you are pastoring in his legacy.
That's right. And you are pastoring his church because we're all the church.
Absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's one that is doing something, but I'm the only one of the 7 grandchildren in full-time ministry. So if you think about it, I am carrying his mantle.
Absolutely.
I am carrying his legacy. And so to me, that's more important. And I'm doing it my way. I'm doing it the way God wants me to do it. Yeah.
God ordains our steps.
Yes.
So it's not something that you go outside of God's will and be like, well, no, I'm pastoring this church because my grandfather did.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
No, you can't do that.
Like we've said in like our stories.
This isn't a mom and pop shop that, it's failing and the grandson's like, I'll step up and take it. No, it's not.
It doesn't. Maybe in businesses and like family businesses, it works like that. But in the church, it just doesn't work like that. And like we've said, God leads us to each assignment.
Absolutely.
And so could he eventually bring us back around? Who knows?
Who knows?
But we just follow him assignment by assignment.
So. Yep. And we're very, very happy here.
Absolutely.
And I love where God's has us. If the Night to Shine episode wasn't proof enough that God has us in the right place at the right time, and what God's doing in our church here, what God's doing with me within the staff, and what God's doing with our kids in the school that they're in.
I wouldn't change it.
I would not change a thing. But we've always said, if we ever did have to move, it's got to be God that moves us. We will not move because I have this ambition I need to accomplish, or Jessica really wants this to happen. No. If we ever move places, it's because it's undeniable God is moving us.
Absolutely.
And that's the only thing that will ever move us. Finally, the last question that I have, again, please send us your questions, is from Miss Summer Cordova 5376. We love Summer. She comments and likes all of our stuff.
Hey, Summer.
And she asked, if you could give one piece of advice to someone in their 20s, what would it be?
This goes back to what I said. I don't even have to think about it. This goes back to what I said earlier. Enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
We spend so much of our life trying to get to the next part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait when you're in your early 20s. I can't wait to get married. I can't wait to have kids. I can't wait to, and it's like, enjoy where you are, where you are. Like I said, if you're not married, enjoy being single. If you're newly married, enjoy being newly married. And we did enjoy being newly married, but
It went by too fast.
Yes. And I wish we could go. We didn't know when we had kids how it would change. But now that we do know, I wish we could go
People
back.
warned us.
I know, but it's hard.
But you don't know until you do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like just being able to worry about each other. There were so many weekends where we just sat and watched TV. Like nothing, our life looks nothing like that anymore.
Right.
And I wouldn't change our kids. I wouldn't change anything or the order we did or anything. But I do wish I appreciated the time I was in, you know? Because I would love to go back to college and just appreciate it more. Like there's so many parts of my life I just wished.
I thought about that the other day.
I just wished away. Like I can't wait to graduate. I can't wait to get married. And like just be content with where God has you right now.
There is a tipping point, probably your late 30s, where all of a sudden it's like, I can't wait to grow up. I can't wait to grow up. And then all of a sudden you hit this point, you're like, I wish I was a kid. I wish I was a kid. I wish I was a kid. There's somewhere in that realm of age where you began looking
really
backwards.
I was a kid. I just wish I appreciated it.
Right.
I wish I enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
You know, because time is so fleeting.
Right. No, I 100% agree. The only thing I'll add to that is use your 20s. I wish I need to write this down somewhere. They say in your teens, you're trying to become a man or a woman. In your 20s, you're trying to solidify who you are. In your 30s, you're trying to grow into who you are. In your 40s, you're trying to celebrate who you are. And in your 50s, you're beginning to produce from who you are. It's like this ongoing stage of life where in your 50s, it's like now your legacy, people know you as that's the person who does this. That's the person who wrote this. That's the person who composed this. When you get to that age of your life. Now, sometimes it happens younger, sometimes it happens older. But that there's certain stages in your decades. And so in your 20s, especially when you're in the quote unquote prime of your life, that's when you begin really solidifying, this is my personality. These are the things I like. These are the things I don't like. These are the aptitudes I have. These are the giftings I have. These are the skills that I have. This is the way my temperament is. You're really solidifying, this is me. And a lot of people rush into marriage before they even know who they are. And then your whole marriage is trying to figure out who you are while also trying to balance being a husband or being a wife or being a mother or being a father. And you never really captured who you are. And I can say this with vulnerability because I did not fully grasp my identity until my late 30s.
I know. I was going to say, I think finding yourself in your 20s is almost kind of not even a thing. I mean, I do think part of it starts, but I got married at 23. You got married 25.
4 and 2.
No, I wasn't 22 because I was right before I turned 23.
Correct.
So that's really young. And we did kind of.
And the reason I know this is because me and my dad got married at the same age. That's why I'll always remember that.
I was thinking, because it was 2009, I turned 23.
Correct.
But that was a couple months after our wedding. But anyway, we did kind of have to grow up together and find our and that takes even more work. So if you can start thinking about this stuff before you get into a relationship,
right.
You know?
There's a counterbalance to that. I was reading an article. Yeah, David reads. I was reading an article about a week or two ago that said the majority of marriages that start early last longer. That most people, when they get into their 20s and 30s, they overthink things or they get too picky or they don't get satisfied.
I saw something about this too, about how the later people wait to get married, they do become more picky. They've waited for this. And that goes back to what we were saying earlier. Don't settle.
No.
But you're never going to find this person that's exactly what you think you need.
Right.
You know, it's fine to have a list of things you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But no one is going to probably check off every single thing because there's no perfect person.
Which is why I said, then you be the person that checks off all the boxes. You be the person God's created you to be.
Some people have this list of they have to be 6'4", they have to have blue eyes. You know, like they have
to make this much money in this line of work.
Yeah, and like these career women who have, you know, they make all this money. And so it becomes more about those lives that they've already
fitting
built,
into a mold.
And they've already built 2 complete lives and they're having to merge it. When you're young,
you can build that life together.
You're building your life together.
Right.
So I do think in some ways it's easier to do that.
Right.
You know, I'm glad that we did it the way we did. But I just go back to, I wish I would have enjoyed each stage of my life.
Right.
Every single part of my life.
Yeah. I just found that so fascinating that they said historically men and women got married late teens, early 20s, and their marriages lasted so much longer. Of course, there also wasn't a lot of the
culture's so different.
Yeah, a lot of the stress of society and how the culture's changed. And but even in other countries, a lot of those cultures remain, and even to the point of parent selected spouses. And a lot of those marriages, crazy enough, seem to work better than our opinionated, have to check all the boxes marriages, which 50% of them end in divorce.
So many people are just out there looking for this person that's going to be
make them happy,
to them, and then they get married and it's not what they thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it's not going to be exactly what you don't know. You don't know what it's like to be married to someone until you are. Like there's things, that nobody's perfect.
You don't know what you need. God does.
And so going into it, we went into our marriage knowing that this was forever.
Mm-hmm.
And not that people that I'm not trying to downplay anyone that's had a divorce or anything. I know stuff happens and it's not always that person's
And sometimes
fault.
Divorce is necessary.
Right.
We know that.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, I think I know a lot of people go into marriage like, well, let's just see. Let's just see what happens. And it has to be this.
This isn't buying a leather coat.
It has to be this
Let's just see
eternal
if this fits.
decision that, no, we're going to do this together.
Right.
For the long haul. No matter, like, I think taking out, like, a lot of people don't even do these vows anymore, but I think you need to say in sickness
and in health, in rich or poor.
Because that's
to love
life.
And to cherish.
That's
to honor
life.
and obey.
I mean, that is life.
Yep.
You're going to have rich and poor seasons. You're going to have sickness and health seasons.
Yes, you will.
And so we can't go in.
Till death do you part.
Yeah. But I think so many people don't even take those vows.
No.
Even if they say them, they don't think about what that means.
No, we did.
Yeah. I mean, even though at 22, like, I meant it, but did I really understand what it was going to be like? No.
Right.
I was committed, but I didn't know when we saying yes, okay, now move to Texas, 800 miles away. You have to be committed to do something like
in
that.
ministry and in life.
Yeah. In Texas and in Georgia.
Yep.
In Georgia.
And in Indiana. In Indiana and Alabama. In Alabama and Arkansas.
Yeah, but you can't look to your circumstances to make you happy.
No.
Whether you have a lot in the bank account, a little in the bank account, whether you're fighting, whatever, that commitment is still, it's ultimately that commitment that keeps you together.
In autism and in picky eaters.
In sleepless nights and
in Lucy and in Mark. In Nate and in Jess. In Dave and in Layla. In all circumstances. But the good thing about all those, every single area we just said, what's been the constant through all of it? Him.
Yeah.
He's been in the constant in every single thing. And that's why if I could say anything to anybody in your 20s right now, no matter what you do, career, hobby, relationship, goals, dreams, discovering who you are, whatever, make sure Christ is at the center of it and you won't fail. You won't fail because he's never going to steer you wrong. He'll always order your steps, lead and guide you. The Bible says the man makes the plans, but the Lord determines the steps.
And fail to this world may look different than fail to God. Like there's so many times where we've had God move us from a position. We've had hard times in our finances and you feel like, did I fail somewhere? But a lot of times that's just not what's important to God.
No, that's just
that's just life, the circumstances.
To quote Bruce Almighty, if you want to paint a pretty picture, you got to use some dark colors.
That's right. And we all have mountaintops, we all have valleys. That's just part of life. And so you can't go into a valley and be like, well, this marriage isn't working out anymore. Like that's just part of the up and down of marriage.
That's the down of the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate all of you for sending in your questions. Please continue to do so. If you're listening to this on an audio podcast platform, make sure you give us a 5-star rating. You can leave your comments there as well. If you want to email us, email your comments or your questions to us at married15tolife@mail.com. You can also do a voice recording and email that to us, and we would love to hear that and play that on the air and let your voice be heard, and we can answer your question that way. Jess, do your thing.
If you're watching on YouTube, it definitely helps if you will like this video. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell to be notified when we post new videos and leave us a comment down below.
Awesome. I'm excited about the next episode, whenever that is, and whatever that's going to be about. A lot of times we plan these things out. Sometimes we fly week to week and talk about things that are going on in our lives right now. But no matter what it is, we will have something to talk about in the next episode. But until next time, I'm David.
I'm Jess.
I'm the husband.
I'm the wife.
And we are married.
15 to life.
We love you guys.
Bye, everybody.
We'll see you next time. Bye.